Hey there, how's it going? This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. Today, we'll be tackling something that I haven't thought too much about in a while, but the more I think about it, the more I wanted to try it. Today's recipe is mac and cheese. Let's begin this cheese and meat adventure. Alright, let's start by getting the topping out of the way. I've had a lot of people ask me how to grind down the pork rinds in the powder, so here's how I do it. This is about 1 ounce by weight of plain pork rinds. I just throw it into a food processor and grind for about 30 seconds. I've never done this in a normal blender, so your mileage may vary. I imagine in a normal blender, you will have to scrape down the sides as it will get caught in the bottom and on the side. Okay, add this to a bowl and grind in some black pepper. Now shred in about 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Give this a toss and set it to the side for later. Now for the mac portion, we'll take the same food processor and add 1 pound of ground chicken. Now crack in 2 eggs. Grind this for about 1 minute or until the texture is smooth. Now, grab a 1 gallon Ziploc bag and place it into a cup with the edges folded over it. I just happen to have a 6-pan nearby, so I'll use that instead. Scoop your chicken and egg mixture into this bag. Remove the excess air and seal. We will want to let this chill out in the refrigerator for about 10 to 15 minutes. During that time, we can get our cheese sauce ready. For the cheese sauce, we're going to need a double boiler setup. Place 1 cup of heavy cream into a heat-safe bowl. Once the cream is warm to the touch, slowly start to mix in 3 ounces by weight of shredded cheddar cheese. We want to do this slowly here because we do not want our cheese to separate. This is how we end up with a grainy sauce. After all the cheese is incorporated, you can optionally add 1/2 teaspoon of mustard. The mustard is a natural emulsifier and will help the sauce smooth out even more. Finally, season with salt and pepper to your taste. Set this aside while we begin to cook our gnocchi. Alright, let's talk nudes. Put a non-stick skillet over medium-high heat with about 4 cups of water in it, or until the pan is about 3/4 full. Add 3 tablespoons of salt to season the water. Alright, now you can pull your gnocchi dough out of the fridge and cut the corner of the bag. This is what's going to let you pipe out the noodles into the water. To do this, hold the top of the bag and apply even pressure downwards. This helps the mixture push out, and use a fork or a spoon to cut the dough. Cook this for about 2 to 3 minutes and flip once or twice to ensure all sides are cooked through. Pull from the water and let drain on a paper towel. Repeat this until you've used all of your dough. Alright, it's almost time to eat. Grab your bowl of cheese sauce and add your gnocchi nudes. Next, add about 2 tablespoons more of cheddar cheese so you can get a cheese pool later on when you're done cooking it. Fold this all together carefully so that you're not breaking up your noodles. Now, pour this all into your cooking vessel of choice. I used a small cast iron pan, but a baking dish will work here as well. Finally, top this with your breadcrumb mixture. Place this into an oven on high broil and broil for about 4 to 8 minutes while keeping an eye on it. We do not want it to burn. And there it is. Garnish with whatever you want. I went outside and found some wild scallions just for a little extra color and a little extra flavor. This was surprisingly delicious. The texture of the gnocchi is not at all what you think it's going to be. It's a little spongy, but it soaks up the sauce very well. I hope you enjoy it. If you liked the video, please throw me a like, and if you want to see more, consider subscribing. If you want to follow along with my daily eating life, you can follow me on Instagram. Link is in the description. Until next time, stay beefy, my friends. Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. In today's video, I'm going to show you something that it was just kind of an idea that I was going to do at the restaurant with some leftover product. So I decided to do it myself at home to see what it would be like first. This is a fried Reuben. I wanted it to be kind of like a cheese stick almost, but also filled with meat. What I've achieved was really good. Is it actually better than a Reuben? Well, won't you wait till the end to find out. I do have two separate recipes for this. They're pretty much the same. One just adds sauerkraut to those people that actually eat sauerkraut. If you're not one of those people, I totally understand, so don't be too upset about it. A Reuben sandwich has some basics that I like to follow. Corned beef, Swiss cheese, sauerkraut. There's a dressing usually, Russian or Thousand Island for Americans, but I'm going to forgo the dressing for this video. Here, I'm going to be using about 6 ounces of deli sliced corned beef in each pile. You can absolutely cook your own corned beef. Since this is going to be blended, I decided this would be sufficient. Give this a rough chop. Next up, we're going to need some Swiss. See the holes? That's Swiss. I have two different piles here because I'm going to be making two different versions of this fried Reuben. One version will be just meat and cheese, and the other will have some added sauerkraut. To the meat and cheese pile, you'll want to add 4 ounces or 1 cup of Swiss cheese that's been shredded. For the sauerkraut folk, you'll want 2 ounces or a half cup of Swiss cheese that's been shredded. And that's because you're going to be bulking this up with about a half cup of sauerkraut. Knowing what I know now, squeeze out as much liquid out of your fermented cabbage before processing this. Speaking of processing, simply add your ingredients into a food processor or blender along with 1 egg and process for about 1 minute. This is the texture you're looking for. It is a bit crumbly. This is okay because when we go to cook these, the cheese will act as a glue to keep them together. The kraut version is pretty much the same, but a bit more moist. The next step is to make some patties. I got about 4 patties per recipe. Grab about 2.5 ounces of your mixture and press firmly together. Use the plate to help shape these if you need to. We will be freezing these to help us later on when we go to batter them. Throw these beefy little lovers into the freezer for about 30 minutes or until they're slightly firm. After that time, we can set up our dredging station. Egg battle 2 eggs into your bowl and add in about a half cup of milk. Really fork this one. Next up, I added some ground pork rinds to a plate and began breading. Egg wash followed by pressing in the pork rinds. Now, I like Reuben's rye bread. We can achieve this flavor here if you add in some chopped up caraway seed or ground pork rind crumbs. But I know how the community feels about seeds. Hell, I kind of feel the same. But if you want to, and for the sake of flavor, feel free to add in about a half teaspoon of caraway seeds per cup of pork rinds. We will be pan frying these puppies. Place a pan over medium heat with about 1 1/4 cups of fat of your choice. I think lard or tallow would be the best option here. I didn't have any, so I went with what I had. Butter and some added olive oil to keep it from burning. Place these into your pan and cook them for about 4 to 5 minutes per side, flipping occasionally. They won't get very firm in the pan, but as you pull them out to drain, the cheese and the egg will help them solidify a bit. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that sexy of a cheese pull. And let's check the unholy non-carnivore ketovore version. A bit less of a cheese pull, but that's expected considering we swapped half the volume with fermented cabbage. But it is still delicious. Honestly, this is nearly on par with an actual Reuben sandwich. Nothing will ever actually beat a Reuben, but this is really close.
Alright, today guys, we're going to be making a little corned beef.
Hey, what's going on, my beefy friends? This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef, and today's recipe was completely off the cuff, and I somehow ended up making an au gratin dish with meat instead of potatoes. So to make this corned beef au gratin, you're going to want to buy a pre-brined corned beef that weighs 2 to 3 pounds. And we want to follow the directions, and they're actually right on the package, so I'll make this a little bit easier for you and make it like a little audiobook version of the package directions. First, remove our beef from the packaging and retrieve our spice packet. Next, we want to add the spice packet to a pot of boiling water. I know you're wanting to know what's in the spice packet, but it's a secret and I'm not telling you. By the way, this is about 5 cups of water. Now, we need to add our bright red brisket to the boiling water, and then reduce the heat to low and cover. We want to cook this for 1 hour per pound, and so since this is a 2-pound brisket, I cooked it for 2 hours. And here it is, looking like a little floating meat island that I'd love to take a cruise to, because Meat Island doesn't exist. Remove this from the pot, reserving the brining water, and we want to let this cool down for about 30 minutes so we can give it a good slice and dice. I went with pretty thick slices, but feel free to slice this however you like, just make sure it's consistent. Now for the sauce, we want to retain as much of that corned beef flavor as possible. So add in a half cup of your corned beef water, and then a half cup of heavy cream, and then we will reduce this over medium heat until it's been reduced by half. It took me about 5 minutes to achieve this. It should still be pretty liquidy, but it will continue to cook in the oven, so, well, at least I hope it does. Alright, let's get the tender little beefy slices into a heat-safe bowl and add a 1/4 cup of mozzarella, 1 ounce of cream cheese, your hot liquid mixture, and some fresh cracked black pepper. All we really want to do here is mix until you don't see any more lumps of cream cheese. Now, choose a vessel for this dish to set sail in. Is 2 nautical jokes in 1 video too many? I just used the same pan that my liquid mixture was in. Top this with the remaining 1/4 cup of mozzarella, and then I shredded some Parmesan over for good measure and even more browning. Please do this, don't skip this, even if you have to use the tree bark in a shaker bottle. I put the whole thing into an oven set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes and turning it to broil for the last 5 minutes. Look how golden and bubbly this is. It's way too hot to eat right now, so crack some black pepper on top and then set a timer for 10 to 20 minutes. You can just, do your dishes or literally anything while you're waiting. Alright, now that it's cooled, let's give it a taste. I'm not gonna lie and say that I planned this video because I just straight up winged it. I had a corned beef in my fridge, it was just calling my name, but I wanted to do something interesting with it and somehow made a beefy gratin. I think you should try this. I think that it'd be good with most meats, and hell, even deli meats would be good. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please show it by leaving a like. If you want to see more of my beautiful face in the future, you should hit that subscribe button and even that little bell icon so you can be the first to see my new videos as they come out. Stay beefy, my friends. Alright, this is a little weird for an intro for me, so I'm just going to kind of stick this right up there. Okay. Hey, my name's Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. I've been testing a carnivore noodle in the background and I haven't had a whole lot of success doing it. But I came across a video of a guy making tortillas and he used gelatin in the recipe. And it made me think about what textures that like bread gives off and how to even get that in this diet. And then gelatin just made sense immediately. I don't really know why I didn't think of it before because I just used it last week to stabilize whipped cream. So luckily I have a pile of gelatin I can use to test this with. This is not the first video of this I will make, because I will make the perfect noodle out of just animal products eventually. So I'm excited to show you how to make this, which is Carnivore Lasagna. Expect more recipes to come that include this recipe for noodles, because I can't just stop there. I've gotta expand my horizons with this. So let's get started. First, we need to get our gelatin dissolved. Take 1 packet of powdered gelatin and 2 tablespoons of very hot water and stir together until dissolved. Now, let's take 8 ounces of low moisture mozzarella and add it to a food processor. Pulse this a few times to get the cheese in smaller pieces. Now, we want to add 3 whole eggs and process on low for about 1 minute. I processed mine for a long time because I was worried about it being grainy, but we'll find out soon that it won't matter. Now, add all of your dissolved gelatin and process on high for about 30 seconds. Alright, take a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper and begin to spread out this mixture. As I found out, it won't matter how long you spread this out because there's enough cheese in it that'll just melt out and even itself out. So just spread it out, ensuring to hit edge to edge. Place into an oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 to 25 minutes. Alright, while that's in the oven, we should have enough time to get everything else ready. Take 7 ounces by weight of ricotta cheese, 2 tablespoons of freshly grated Parmesan, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a few twists of freshly cracked black pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of dried basil. Mix this together and set aside in the refrigerator until we need it. We're going to need a meat sauce for this lasagna, but we also want to keep the inflammatory things at an absolute minimum. So, take a half pound of ground beef and brown it. Now, let's add 1 tablespoon of our super secret ingredient that will definitely trigger some people in the comments. It's tomato paste. Then add 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of dried basil. Stir this together until things start to stick to the bottom of the pan. This is just adding flavor and caramelizing. Deglaze the pot with 2 cups of bone broth and then add in 2 scoops of collagen if you have it. We want the sauce to thicken by using reduction to make it happen, and the extra collagen will definitely help this. Let this simmer on the side and let it reduce until it coats the back of a spoon. And while we're doing that, we can take a look at our noodles. Here is the finished noodle sheet, and I have to say, I thought this would be completely browned considering how much cheese and egg is in it, but oh, okay. Well, flip it over and let's start to pull off the parchment paper. Well, I have to say, this was a little difficult. And be careful doing this, because you don't want this to break apart. This footage is actually 2 minutes of me being careful and taking it off. I think if I was more patient and let it cool completely, it will be much easier to take off, and I'll confirm this in a later video. But for now, just let it cool a little bit longer than I did, and then pull it apart. Alright, now that we've done that, let's grab our pan we'll be using and start cutting this into sheets for the size of the pan. Okay, let's put this beast together. Feel free to do it however you want, but here's what I did. I placed a little sauce on the bottom and spread it around. Next up is a noodle sheet. Top that with some of your ricotta mixture. Then some of your meat sauce. And add a little mozzarella. Rinse and repeat until everything has been used up. I topped it off with a little fresh parm and fresh cracked black pepper. And then I covered it in foil and cooked at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. I removed the foil within the last 5 minutes of cooking and turned the oven to broil so that I could brown the cheese. Alright, just like any other lasagna, we need to let this rest for at least 20 minutes. Things are a little liquidy in there, and you'll just end up with a bunch of slop on your plate if you cut into it right now. I wasn't expecting this good of a cheese pull, but I'm very impressed with myself. As soon as I cut into it, I was ecstatic to see all the layers. I was worried that I was going to end up with some broken down noodles or just noodles that overabsorbed everything and just be a big red mess. But this just worked out so well, and I'm happy to see it. Well, that's the video. If you enjoyed it, please throw me a like. If you're interested in seeing more of what I'm putting out in the future, please consider subscribing. Also, if you make this recipe, please send me a DM on Instagram and I'd love to repost it. Stay beefy, my friends. Yeah, can I get a Baconator, just a sandwich with no... the double?
What else can I get for you?
Can I get no ketchup on that?
Okay.
That'll be it.
That'll be $7.47.
Alright, thank you.
You're welcome.
4 for 4. Get the 4 for 4, where you get 4 more scores with the door. Chicken nuggets or chili that feeds 6 for $10. I mean, them nuggets are pretty good. Get the 4 for 4 of 4 doors and cores. Store the war for the 4 for 4.
$7.47.
Alright.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alright.
Have a nice day.
Thanks, you too. Ooh, it smells like grease. Nice and greasy. That's what it smells like.
Hamburger.
pan burger. Let's see how this thing looks. I mean, if you're in America, you've probably had at least one of these and know what it looks like, so. But, we gotta take a look again. Oh, asked for no ketchup, and they put extra ketchup. Can I get no ketchup on that? Or they only put ketchup? Okay, whatever, dude. Here it is. Looks mushed. Doesn't look bad, though. It looks like, you know, it looks like a burger. It looks like it's worth $7. It's supposed to have 3 strips of bacon per patty, but I see 2. There's a slice of garbage between each burger, and they're quarter-pound patties with an ass of ketchup for some reason. The hardest part is going to be this bun. It is very shiny, like it's you know, it's coated in something, probably cheap oil, if I had to take a guess. I'm gonna do something controversial. That was very bland. It tastes like they didn't season the meat at all. I don't know why. I know they usually do. I didn't taste the bacon. I kind of tasted the cheese. The bun's what's throwing it off. The bun's kind of gross. It's like super sweet and just not great. I think I could do a better job in general. Like, even if I wasn't making this a carnivore version, I could do a much better job than wherever the hell this is. But that's neither here nor there. I gotta make a carnivore version. So let's get started with that. How about we do that? I'm sitting here eating the burger patty, and there's just something not good. I don't know if it's the bacon. Oh, it's the bacon. Ooh. What's up with this bacon? It's so weird. I'm just gonna not eat it. Yeah. Alright, anyways, let's make this thing. To start, we need to brown about 6 ounces of ground beef so that we end up with 4 ounces of cooked ground beef in the end. Drain the grease and place it into a food processor, along with 1 ounce of cream cheese, 6 eggs, a half teaspoon of baking powder, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Process this on low for about 1 minute. Here, you'll think you've made a mistake, and that's because you have. Haha! I got you to make a recipe that isn't very effective. If you want, while you're watching this first one not working, add 1 ounce of ground pork rinds by weight to your mixture. Here it is in the pan for reference. It definitely had more structure, but it still wasn't the way I wanted it. For the actual recipe, get a pan lined with a silicone baking mat or parchment paper. Place down a 3-inch ring mold that's either non-stick or has been well greased. Place about 1/3 of a cup of your batter into these. Put this into a 365-degree Fahrenheit oven for 20 minutes or until it is firm and brown. Wendy's burger patties for the normal Baconator are 4 ounces each. So take your 4-ounce meat wads and begin to shape them into squares. I would say take all of your meat and spread it out to a 1/2 inch thick and then cut it into squares, but Wendy's doesn't cut corners and neither do we. Look at how square this is. Wendy's also uses applewood smoked bacon, which is a weird choice because hickory smoked is obviously the superior wood used for bacon. Cook up 3 slices and cut them in half. Now, to cook our burgers, we'll put the pan over medium-high heat and begin to press it down to get a better sear. Once they are cooked to your liking, add a slice of trash to each, along with 3 strips of bacon on each. Turn one burger so that the bacon is the opposite way of the other and place it on top. Set aside while we get this ridiculously nice-looking bun out of the oven. Split this in half and be amazed at how good it looks. Baconators have ketchup and mayo on them, but feel free to skip that if you don't want it. I just happen to have a jar of avocado mayo in the fridge. The way this thing looks is absolutely mind-blowing, and it looked like a burger from a commercial, and I was very happy to see it like this. But how does it taste? It tastes even better than the actual Baconator in my opinion. I don't know if it's from the type of meat I used, or if the fact that it actually seasoned it and didn't put extra ketchup on it. But this was genuinely much better than the bite I had from the restaurant. I'm not biased, you're biased. Well, that's it. Do you have anything else you want to see me trash form into carnivore? Leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, please leave me a like. If you want to see more, please consider subscribing. It's totally free and keeps me motivated to continue to make these videos. Stay trashy, my friends. Hey there, my meaty friends, this is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef, and in today's video, I'm going to be making a Big Mac, or at least a rendition of a Big Mac that I just kind of put together. I kept it very simple with my carnivore bun. I made some cheeseburgers, and I made a little sauce for it, because that's the main staple of the Big Mac is definitely the sauce with the cheeseburger. So, without any further ado, let's get started. To start our 3-tiered bun, we will need 1 ounce of pork rinds, 1 ounce of cream cheese, 4 ounces of cooked ground beef, 3 eggs, and a half teaspoon of baking powder. Liquefy this in a blender or food processor for about 1 minute. The next part is rather simple. Place a sheet of parchment paper onto a tray. You'll also want a couple of 3 or 4 inch ring molds as well. Fill these up until they're at the top. With this amount of batter, you should get 2 full buns. We'll need both of these to make 1 Big Mac bun. Go ahead and place these into an oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes. While those are in there, let's cook up 2 thin patties. All I did to make this patty was take 4 ounces of ground beef and turn that into a meatball. Press this against a plate until it's uniform. 4 ounces of meat is an aggressive amount of meat for a standard Big Mac, but I wanted something a bit more filling. I made 2 of these and placed them into a pan that was set over medium-high heat. Season those up with salt and pepper and let it cook for about 3 minutes total. Don't forget to season both sides. Top them with a slice of trash cheese and set them aside. The advanced flavor profile of Big Mac sauce will remain elusive on the carnivore diet since I don't want to add sugar or ketchup. I will start with making a little bit of not mayo. Add a 1/4 cup of whipped cream cheese and a 1/4 cup of sour cream to a bowl. To replace the pickles for the Big Mac, I added 2 tablespoons of pickle juice. For the touch of sweetness I'm willing to use, I added about a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. For the onion flavor, I added about a 1/4 teaspoon of dehydrated onion, but you can also use onion powder. And finally, I don't have any paprika for color, so I use Cajun seasoning, but for you need to use a half teaspoon of smoked paprika, or regular if you don't have it, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Give this a mix and set aside because it's time to build this. You may be wondering where these sesame seeds came from. I ask myself the same thing every day. Grab your buns and decide which of the 2 has the best top. Those would be the old lefty for me. Now, take your second bun and remove that hideous top. There we go. That looks like a Big Mac bun. So I just went for it with the sauce, bun, burger, sauce, bun, sauce, burger, bun? I don't know. After getting a 3rd layer of sauce, I realized I'd gotten overzealous. I also realized how big this thing was. I'll be honest and say I was a bit intimidated to take a bite. I unhinged my jaw and got a little bit in, but I think cutting this thing in half is a better option. Oh yeah, much more enjoyable that way. It's definitely not the best recreation of a Big Mac. If you want to add lettuce and pickles to it, you can to make it more authentic, but this passes for me and it's very enjoyable. See y'all next time. Well, it's only 9:30 a.m. and it's already 95 degrees, so why not make a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin? Huh? That doesn't sound hot at all. But seriously, I did ask y'all what y'all wanted to see from McDonald's for breakfast. And really, the majority was the McGriddle, but I'm gonna need some time to think about that to figure out exactly how I want to make it. But for now, let's go ahead and make a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin. I'm very confident with that. I can get that done right now. So let's get it done. So the basis for this one is pretty easy. I've already made the muffin recipe before, so I've already got that going for me. And that's probably the easiest part of this whole thing besides the making of it, because otherwise it'll be a bunch of grease splattering all over my knees. But that's okay, it's worth it for this end product because I'm kind of excited about that. Spatula, fork. I'll use something else. That should be it. I have these pork rind crumbs. Usually I would do this myself, but I found that it's a lot easier to have something in the van good to go to make things like this. So I bought these. These are from Pork King Good. Never used them before. They're not a sponsor. I'm excited to see how they taste. Go ahead and make this muffin mix. Smell like pork rinds. Well, look at that. It tastes like it too. All right. I'm going to be eyeballing this, but I'll have all the written measurements down below. That should be good. To this, we'll crack in 2 eggs. Oh, God. Then we'll add in a half a teaspoon of baking powder. Definitely not Drunks. Typically the pork rinds are going to be salty enough to not have to add any seasoning whatsoever. But if you find that your pork rinds are bland or you just want to add something to it, feel free to do that. These are pretty well seasoned. It tastes really good actually. Take your mixture, give that a little hot forking action. Just let that absorb. It'll take a little time. It'll sit there and it'll kind of thicken up. Let's go ahead and get all the other little things prepped up, like the sausage patty and the egg. For this recipe, I'll be using this Tennessee Pride breakfast sausage. Feel free to use whatever you want. This one is, I mean, it tastes really good. The only problem is it has all the like maltodextrin and stuff like that. I will eventually be making a recipe on how to make some good breakfast sausage with all the garbage in it. But for now, I don't have the time for that today or the will to sit in the heat to make that happen. So for now, I'm just gonna use this, and it's pretty damn good. I'm just gonna get a couple of patties out of it. Well, it'd probably help if I turned the gas on. Oh, I don't even have it in there. This will produce a good bit of grease, and we'll use that to cook our muffin on. It was a bit too big, but it'll be okay. Well, since I don't have too many interesting things to say about sausage cooking, let's just get to the point. All right, these are done. All right, so I've seen a video of how McDonald's makes their eggs, and they have a big ring mold, and you crack an egg in, just a little bit of water, and then you steam it. But I don't have a lid for this thing, but I do have a ring mold, little crazy guy ring mold. And they usually cook it in clarified butter over super low heat, so I'm gonna turn my heat pretty low. I'm gonna use the grease to do this. So I'm gonna just put this down, crack an egg. I'll help this along just a little bit by poking some little tiny holes in it. There we go. That'll work. Shouldn't take too long on the other side, probably like 20 seconds at the most. So I still want it to be kind of malleable and not super hard fried. In fact, this is a lot harder than they even get it to. But I think they also use parchment paper under it to keep it from doing this. But either way, it's okay. It'll still be good. Egg patty. We'll do one more. Yeah. Alright, second egg's done. By the way, I added a trash can in this van, and it's probably the nicest addition I've done so far. So I've done this before with the muffins, where I've used a ring mold to make it look nicer. And I don't remember the outcome, but I think the freehand one, where I just mush it down in the pan, might have looked better, but let's just go ahead and do a couple of them to see how they look. One with the ring mold and one without. So this stuff is pretty sticky. That's why I'm wearing gloves right now. I'm just gonna separate that into two pieces. Try to get it as even as possible. If you're willing to make this super legit, you would do this by weight. Just get the weight of the total dough you have and then just split it by two. And if I remember correctly, I think the one in the ring mold just didn't look as good. It was too perfect maybe, but I could be wrong. Because if you were doing a English muffin, this is how you would do it. You would be dough ball, kind of flattened already, and you would just put it down, and it would kind of get crinkly on the outside. Oh yeah. That's looking pretty good. It almost looks like the biscuits I made. Alright, whatever I said in the first one, I think I disagree with. I'm pretty sure I said like this one better. This one's gonna have a lot more rise to it just because it had a more chance to cook evenly on these edges. So it's gonna be a lot taller by the time it's done cooking. This one will remain pretty flat just because it didn't have a chance to have heat come up to the side of it. All we're waiting for now is for the center of the dough to be cooked. And after that, we can put this thing together. We'll call it on that one. You know what? In fact, I think what I'm gonna do is split it here. Let that griddle on one side. We have a nicely split muffin already. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I like that. I kind of like that more. Cool, that works for me. I don't have to cut it either. And it's got pretty good rise on both sides. So it shouldn't take much longer after you flip it like that. Yeah, it's done. we can assemble this thing finally. All right, the assembly is pretty simple here. I'm gonna take our muffin, which is this is the one with the ring mold. Keep our top separate. I'm gonna take a slice of trash cheese, lay that garbage right on there. Follow that up with your sausage patty, and then finally your egg patty. And you'll top it. I don't know about you, but I think that looks pretty damn legit. Let's go eat this thing. I don't feel like sitting in this fan anymore. I'm gonna go to a bench real quick, so just give me 1 second. Alright. Let's give this thing a try. Now, I'm sure you know that this was probably going to be pretty easy to make. It's just a few simple ingredients that work well together. Usually if I get breakfast at McDonald's, I'll usually get this, but without the muffin. So it's just kind of nice to have something kind of similar. But that's it. McDonald's sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin. Give the video a like, subscribe to the channel. See y'all next time. Yeah, can I get a Crunchwrap Supreme?
Okay, anything else?
That'll be it. No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Well, here's the bag. I used to eat Taco Bell every single day when I was in a deathcore band, and we'd have practice for like 4 hours at a time, and then we'd go to our local Taco Bell, and we'd spend basically no money on 2,000 calories. And I would do this literally every day we practiced, and we practiced 5 to 7 days a week. The Crunchwrap was a few years old, and I very rarely got it because it was, you know, it's expensive. And it's not my favorite item, but it's definitely iconic. And after cutting into it, I'm not too sure why. I won't lie and say that I don't miss Taco Bell, but I will say that I don't miss the severe digestive issues it caused me. How about we throw this sad item into the woods for some bougie woodland critters to enjoy? Let's make something that's not going to destroy my day. For the crunch part of the tortilla, I needed something that would hopefully crisp up. What I did was add 4 ounces of mozzarella, 1 ounce of pork rinds, and 1 whole egg to a food processor. I processed on low for about 1 minute and it turned into an actual dough. I will 100% be doing other things with this, so be on the lookout for that. Let's set this to the side and get some other things ready. I used my crepe recipe for the soft tortilla, which I just recently did. Check out the top right of the screen to watch that video too. I used 2 ounces of pork rinds, 4 eggs, and a half cup of water. Mix this together and then realize that a rubber spatula isn't a great mixing tool, so switch to a whisk. Set this aside and adjust the water as needed to thin it out. You'd think that ground beef would be simple enough, but you'd be surprised on how to get finer ground beef without searing it. I learned this one from my first boss. Add about a half cup of water to your pan first and set it to medium-high heat. Add your ground beef and begin to chop it up. You'll want to continuously chop it up and add water to this to keep everything from browning too fast and clumping up. Drain this and put it back on the pan over medium-low heat while we add 1 teaspoon of onion powder, a half teaspoon of garlic powder, a half teaspoon of beef bouillon powder, a half teaspoon of cumin, a half teaspoon of chili powder, and a half teaspoon of paprika. Stir this for about a minute to let all the spices toast and come together, and then salt this to taste and then set aside. Now, Taco Bell's cheese sauce is a pretty complex flavor of fake cheese and jalapeno. So let's set up a double boiler over medium heat and add 6 slices of trash cheese, a half cup of whole milk, and 3 to 6 tablespoons of pickled jalapeno juice, just depending on how spicy you want it. While stirring this, you're probably going to think that you've made a huge mistake, but just keep stirring and eventually you'll realize that the mistake was just an illusion. Since this is done, let's hide it away with our other fillers, but over a low source of heat if possible to keep it melty. You don't have to go out and buy a fancy griddle pan like me, but I do suggest that you use the biggest non-stick pan that you own. The bigger the pan, the bigger the tortilla, that makes it easier to wrap later. Place down 2/3 of a cup of your soft tortilla batter to a non-stick surface set over medium heat. Spread it out with a spatula as evenly as possible. Slide this onto a plate after about a minute of cooking and then flip it back onto the pan using the plate for an additional 30 seconds to finish it cooking. Here it is again, just to reiterate that you should definitely slide this onto a plate and then use the plate to flip it over. It can be very fragile. Now it's time for the quote-unquote crunch part of this crunch wrap. The thing I like about this dough is that it actually reminds me of making tortillas. Place about a 2-ounce ball of your dough and place it onto a plate lined with parchment paper. Now top that with another sheet of parchment paper and take a flat bottom plate or something like it and press down firmly and evenly to flatten out our dough ball. This is just a bit sticky, so it could possibly lose some pieces. Just patch it where you need it. I also highly suggest to remove both sides of the parchment paper before placing onto a pan set over medium-high heat. I was going for the most texture I could possibly get here, and these cooked for about 3 minutes per side in total. I kept checking, and they actually had a good outside texture, but they weren't quite as crispy as I was shooting for. I think next time I'm going to try pan frying them to see what happens, so if you do that, please let me know how it turned out. Well, that was our mise en place, so let's assemble this thing. Here's how to make a carnivore Crunchwrap. Take one of your soft tortillas, and then spread out some of your cheese sauce. Place down about a 1/4 cup of ground beef, and then top with your crunchy tortilla. The only way I could make this supreme was by adding sour cream because lettuce and tomatoes are already off the menu, and I especially dislike hot food with cold lettuce and tomatoes. Wrap everything over one corner at a time and press firmly to keep its shape. Finally, I uselessly griddled my Crunchwrap, but it really is a pointless endeavor. This soft tortilla has too much moisture to be able to brown up well. I think you could skip this part if you really want to. Well, here's the bag again. Let's see how this thing looks. Oh yeah, that iconic shape-ish is there. It's a little floppy, but it smells too good to not get a bite in. I'm glad I have a bowl of my cheese sauce because a little souffle cup wouldn't have been enough.
Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef, aka Boudin Boy. If you've seen my chicken cordon bleu meatball video, you might know that I ran a little contest on my Instagram. You should definitely go follow my Instagram because I plan on doing more of these. But people ran wild with it, and a few of the answers I got me thinking. Boudin Balls is one of the first ones that struck me and made me wonder why I haven't even thought to make it. Maybe it's the rice, and the fact that I'm allergic to rice, that led me to completely disregard it. However, I felt the strongest urge to make them after reading that comment, so here's me doing that. To start, walk in with a soft wiggle, and then grab yourself some pork shoulder of some sort. I get these country style ribs because it's just pork shoulder cut up into strips. A lot of the times it won't even say pork shoulder, but it'll just say country style ribs. This is a great option if you don't feel like getting an entire pork shoulder. Anyways, let's get these fake ribs out and give them a very generous seasoning. This is almost 3 pounds of pork, and I used about a tablespoon of salt for all of it. Get every square inch coated because it definitely needs it. Throw this into an oven at 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 230 degrees Celsius. We want to let it get some good color there, so let it go for about 30 minutes in a convection oven or 40 minutes in a conventional oven. In the meantime, let's get our main flavors together. I'll be avoiding fresh veggies for the obvious reasons, and instead opt for dried spices. But feel free to do whatever you want here. In a bowl, you'll want to add in a 1/4 cup of smoked paprika, 1 tablespoon of celery salt, 1.5 tablespoons of granulated garlic, 1 tablespoon of granulated onion, 1 teaspoon of ground cayenne pepper, and finally a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Give that a hot whisking, and then stick your face in it and breathe deep.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Set that aside while we deal with our now well-roasted pork. Add in 4 cups of water or stock of your choice, as well as 3 tablespoons of your newly made spice mixture. We want this braised semi-low and semi-slow, so cover it very tightly with aluminum foil and place it back into your oven. However, this time set your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius. Let it cook for an hour and 15 minutes in convection oven or an hour and a half in a conventional oven. While that's in the oven again, we could take care of our livers. Place a pan over medium-high heat along with 2 tablespoons of ghee or butter. I added in a half pound of chicken livers and gave them a hard sear. Once I finally flipped them, I decided to add in about a tablespoon of the Cajun spice we made earlier. Flip these occasionally and cook until they're about medium. Once there, set them aside, and it's finally time to pull out our pork. It should be nicely falling apart tender. Remove the pork from the pan, reserving the braising liquid. We're about to be grinding this, so we want to give this a rough chop. Also, if you have a grinder, use the largest grinding plate you have. I did a review on this grinder, but nobody seemed to care, and if you want to see that review, I'll post the link to the video down in the description. Grind or chop up all of your little porky cubes, followed by your chicken livers. What you're looking for is a loose yet fine texture on the pork, and the liver should be creamy. Now we've got that all ground up, let's fortify it. Add in 2 teaspoons of the only hot sauce I had on hand, along with 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of our spice mix, about 2 tablespoons of pork rinds, and 1 egg as a binder, and finally about a 1/3 cup of our braising liquid. Thoroughly mix this by hand before throwing it into our fridge for about an hour to chill out. Once out, we can finally bread these puppies, little Boudin puppies. Grab a sheet tray and spread out some of the pork rinds. Make a meatball by any means necessary. I'm using a cookie dough scoop to make mine much less of a hassle. Roll it around on the pork rinds and then press it in. Complete the round shape based on your OCD needs. Finish up with the rest of your ingredients until you're done. And once you're done making these, about 24 to 30 of them, place them back into your oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 175 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes or until crispy on the outside. Let's get these quickly plated up because I'm excited to take this first bite, which is for my Patreon community. You should join us if you want to be a part of the Cool Kids Club. I'm super happy about putting these balls in my mouth. Holy shit, these are good. I'd like a sauce like a remoulade to go with these, but I'm feeling a bit lazier than normal, so I'll just have to suffer without it. I'd like to make you a bit more saucy, but you'd have to like the video and subscribe to the channel to make that happen.
Hey there, my meaty friends. This is Reed, aka CarnivorousChef. I know for a fact that everyone needs a treat from time to time. If you're not one of those people, feel free to let me know in the comments. But for the rest of you, throw a like on this video if you feel the same way. Whenever I go off and eat something that's way outside of the diet, I end up regretting it for a few days at a time. But what if I didn't have to? What if I could feel like I'm eating something that looks and tastes kinda like a cinnamon roll? I think I will. If you passed by a Cinnabon in your local mall recently and just had some full body convulsions to stop there, maybe it's time to try these. You don't have to sneak in to make these, but you can if you want to. Grab a bowl and magically add in 5 ounces of ground pork rinds. I suggest using the plain flavor here. Next up, add in 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and fork that in there real good like. After that, grab 5 eggs. When you grab them, smack them onto a flat surface. This will breach the membrane of the egg, allowing you to open it up completely. Drop in the contents of all eggs into your pork rinds along with 1 teaspoon of your choice of sweetener, if you're using any. You're going to want to fork this pretty hard swiftly to get it combined. Once you have, set it aside to allow everything to absorb. Now, we need to work on the buttery cinnamon center. Take 1 stick of butter and melt it into a bowl in any way you can. Add in a pinch of salt along with 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Then, if you're using sweetener, add 1 to 1.5 tablespoons worth. Block the view of you mixing it from your camera while you mix it up. I set mine aside while I pulled out a baking sheet lined with a silicone baking mat. Pour your pork rind mixture onto it and spread it out onto a nice rectangle. Like always, you can be as meticulous with this part as you want to be, but just make sure it's rectangular at the end. Place this into an oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius for 5 to 7 minutes or until the batter has just set. While that's in the oven, let's whip up this icing. Get a bowl, add in 2 heaping tablespoons of collagen, then 3 tablespoons of a sweetener of choice. Follow this up with a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, a small pinch of salt, and then 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. Try not to be too much in shock while you're whisking this. I was shooting in the dark just a little bit here, but I had a feeling it would work out. I just didn't think it'd work out this well. I pulled out my pork rind plate about 10 minutes ago and let it cool off so I could handle it. I also placed my butter mixture in the fridge for some reason and it hardened a little bit, but that's fine. Yours should be still rather liquidy if you left it out. Spread the butter and cinnamon mixture on top of this by hand. Leave about 1 inch on one end for rolling it up. Once all of it has been applied, start rolling it up. It may feel like it's not going to cooperate at first, but just keep going. The bigger the roll, the more steady it gets. Once you get to the end, press on it firmly for about 1 minute to make sure it stays together. When you're cutting this, just do your best to get even cuts. The recipe should yield 6 of what I'm calling normal size cinnamon rolls. But you can get 8 small cinnamon rolls, 4 large rolls, or even 2 burritos. Plate these puppies up and let's pour over our collagen frosting. I just went ahead and used all the frosting I had because I didn't want to sit there and eat it out of the bowl. I'm extremely happy with how these turned out. Let's take this first bite for my Patreon community. Whether or not you're using sweeteners here, I think you'll enjoy these. The form factor and texture are just a unique experience whether they're real or carnivore. Don't miss out on this one. You could be a unique experience too if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. For this recipe, you'll need 5 items: a sheet pan, a thick with 4C's steak, an instant read thermometer, salt, and a pan that's not non-stick. I used a New York strip, but you can use any steak that you want. I recommend that it's a fairly thick cut steak and preferably choice or better. Give the steak an inaugural slap and withdraw it from its styrofoam cocoon. It's ready to bloom into something special. Take your sheet pan and place your steak on it. And now we want to salt the entire steak. Just make sure that you hit every side, including and probably most importantly any fat cap that may be included with your cut. Now, we want to rest the steak in the salt for just a few minutes to pull a little water out and to let the salt penetrate the surface. After it's been rested, pat dry with a paper towel so we don't end up steaming our steak in the oven. Set your oven to 250 degrees Fahrenheit and place your steak in it. Set a timer for 30 minutes, but check it about 25 minutes in. Grab your thermometer and place it into the thickest point of your steak. I personally want a medium rare for this one, so I'm looking to hit 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit so that by the time it's seared, it'll be 130 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright, next up, we need to heat a pan over high heat until just the first wisps of smoke start to show. Add in 1 tablespoon of butter along with 1 tablespoon of some other fat to keep the butter from burning. I use tallow. Start off by searing the fat cap for 30 seconds. Swirl it around the butter to coat it. For the bigger flat sides, sear for 60 seconds each. Continue to swirl around in the butter because the milk solids are what help give the steak color. Once all sides are seared, remove and let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes. Here's a moment of silence for steak slicing. The cook is perfect and there's no sign of a gray ring. Just a very evenly cooked steak that wants you to like and subscribe.
Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio. Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio. Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio. Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio. Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio. Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio. Pepe stands for cheese and pepper.
Hey friend, this is Reed, aka Carnivore Chef, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about our Lord and Savior, Cacio Pepe. What we're really going to be doing is tackling carnivore noodles again. If you haven't seen my other video on how I made lasagna noodles, check out the video in the box above after you watch this video. I found this noodle recipe from Ketogenic Woman on YouTube and her video on it will be linked below. I'm going to be using these noodles to make Cacio Pepe, which translates to cheese and pepper, and it's really a simple dish that I'm going to have to bastardize, but still have the same delicious flavors. Let's get started. For the noodles, we're going to need a bowl of ingredients thrown into a food processor. This is 3 tablespoons of ground pork rinds, 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese, and 4 tablespoons of cream cheese. Now, crack in 3 eggs and process on low for about 1 minute. The mixture will look and feel pretty thin. Next, I will be a shilligan for silicone baking sheets. There's a link below if you're interested in getting one for yourself. Pour about a half cup of your mixture and begin spreading out thinly by any means possible. I started by tilting the pan and then using the back of a spoon to fill in the gaps. Just don't go over the edges. Now, place into an oven set to 350 degrees for 8 to 10 minutes or until it's no longer liquid. Remove and let rest for a few minutes. I removed the scraggly parts on mine just because I wanted a better picture, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to because it's still edible. Carefully roll this sheet up and cut it into strips. It's amazing how resilient these are, and I'm very happy to have found this recipe. Ketogenic Woman, if you're watching this, I'm thoroughly impressed. Thank you. For the sauce, let's start with 1 tablespoon of butter and a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. And turn on the heat to medium-high and let the pepper toast in the butter until it's fragrant. Now add in a half cup of heavy cream and let reduce for about 1 minute. Finally, I killed the heat and added 1 tablespoon of Parmesan cheese and 1 tablespoon of Romano cheese and mix that in. Cacio Pepe is typically built with starchy pasta water and cheese emulsifying together, but I'm gonna have to use heavy cream in place of starch, and I just really hope that's okay with you, and you're not too upset at me. I know it's simplistic and amazing, but I've gotta have workarounds, guys. Like, God, stop judging me. Okay, let's put a pile of our noodles down and top it with our sauce. I added some freshly cracked black pepper and some parsley for color. Now, this is absolutely delicious. The sauce alone is worth making and putting on anything, in my opinion. The noodles made me feel like I was actually having noodles, even though they were a little eggy, but overall, I think it was super simple and super delicious. I think I'm gonna have to dub this one CarnivorousChef y Pepe. Well, that's the video. Did you enjoy it? You don't have to lie if you didn't, but if you did, you should show it by hitting that like button. Maybe even subscribe if you're feeling cheesy. Stay cheesy, my friends.
Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio y Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio y Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio y Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio y Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio y Pepe stands for cheese and pepper. Cheese and pepper, cheese and pepper. Cacio y Pepe stands for cheese and pepper.